I actually want to kind of push back on something you said, that nobody's going to take away.
No one's going to fire me as CEO. Yeah. That's true. They can. That's true.
Lots of people don't do deadlines because they don't want to be put in a box, because they want to be less corporate. Boy, this isn't mainland. This isn't corporate. Yeah, you're right. But you're an employee, so fucking do it.
You're creating this deadline timeline as if the world is perfect and nothing is going to go wrong and nothing new is going to happen. They had benchmarkers that they were supposed to hit and they fell behind on one. They're like, oh, it's okay because the event's a month away. I still have 6 weeks to do that. It's fine. And then chaos erupted.
I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda. And this is the Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast.
We're cutting through the fluff and cracking open what it really takes to build a business and a life you actually want.
No gurus, no gatekeeping, just real talk, big action, and the badass energy you need to scale and slay.
Some episodes, it's just us.
And sometimes we bring on powerful guests with stories that'll hit home.
Either way, this isn't about playing small.
It's about going all in.
Let's get after it. Hey there, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda. Welcome to the Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast. You know, we're going to talk about a big dilemma that entrepreneurs have, the deadline dilemma. It's really a deadline paradox because so many entrepreneurs got into entrepreneurship so you wouldn't have a boss telling you what to do. But now, the opposite side of that is that no one's there telling you what to do. So deadlines become somewhat meaningless. So let's talk about how deadlines hit differently when you're the boss of yourself.
Yeah, I think where we need to start though, Amanda, is there are like the real ones, like the ones that have like consequences, right? And so a lot of times people are good at those, the payroll, not always, taxes, event dates, like a hard stop, if you would. But then there's those like elusive or fake deadlines, or that are a little bit looser. So let's keep fake aside, the elusive ones or the non-strict ones, which would be, you know, I want to launch my website. It's kind of like there's no time to it. There's nothing that's holding you accountable. And the third, though, I do want to add a third, is like, then it's the story, the fake deadlines that we kind of tell ourselves. Oh, I'll start posting next month, or I'll launch when my website is perfect, or whatever. Like, so I think that there's different types of deadlines, and for us to like break those apart, because there are aspects to each one that can be beneficial and or detrimental.
For sure. I know that back in old corporate days or whatever business or job that you had before you became an entrepreneur, when you're working for someone else, deadlines have teeth. I mean, every deadline has teeth. It's every time you mess up a report. I mean, I know many of our audience doesn't know the whole office scenario, but the idea of a TPS report that you have 5 different managers coming after you the second that you let that ball drop, that doesn't happen when you're an entrepreneur. So as your own boss, you're both the one setting the deadlines and the one who's letting it slide. And, you know, these are, like you said, self-imposed deadlines.
Some.
And those fail because there's no external friction. So there's nothing, again, there's no teeth there. There's nothing that's going to happen. There's no drama or crazy thing that's going to happen. You're not going to lose your job if you let go of that deadline. In fact, many of us purposefully don't have deadlines for that very reason. We don't, like, no one's going to fire me from the being CEO. But it's not just time management, because I know in talking with clients, we've talked with some clients we've had, and the clients we've had our BA, who will sometimes say it's a time thing. Like, but when the deadline isn't really tied to a real consequence, or it's not put into your calendar as a non-negotiable, or it's not tied to an ultimate goal or a revenue stream or something needle moving, it is really easy for it to let it slip, because there's no, I mean, it doesn't always have to be a negative consequence. There can be positive consequences. So sometimes you put these deadlines down, but you never put it in your calendar. You never really think about like what happens next. So if I don't meet this deadline, this, and this won't happen. And this is my ultimate goal. But if I don't meet this one, that's not happening on that timeline. And so it spirals and it snowballs in ways that you don't always anticipate if you're not actually tracking and actually having a plan around your deadlines and why you have them.
Well, Yeah. I, I mean, I actually want to kind of push back on something you said, that nobody's going to take away, or I forget the phrase that you use, but nobody's going to fire you.
No one's going to fire me as CEO. Yeah. Some of that's, well,
Bullshit.
that's true. They can. That's true.
Then,
Oh, yeah. Well,
or, wherever your business is located. And here's the thing is that, and that's why I brought up the original, like the ones that have teeth and the ones that don't, that are more self-imposed, and then the ones that are just kind of like loosey goosey or fake. Because the ones that have teeth, if you are actually ignoring those deadlines, there are penalties. And you've heard, listen to us, you've heard me say a lot, you practice how you play how you practice. And if you are not taking those deadlines seriously and you're just kind of being loosey goosey about that, then that's going to show up in other things. And so in other aspects of your business and other deadlines. I do love that you talked about how people tend to push it on, well, I don't have time. There's so many reasons why, especially high performers. I want to talk about high performers because lots of people don't do deadlines because they don't want to be put in a box, because they want to be less corporate. I was just dealing with a client this week and there was a deadline imposed and they're like, well, by myself and the owner of the business, and it was their manager. And they're like, well, they're from Hawaii. This isn't mainland. This isn't corporate. Yeah, you're right. But you're an employee, so fucking do it kind of thing. And there was good reason why that this deadline was there. But why high performers tend to miss deadlines isn't because they're not good at accomplishing things, they're not efficient, they don't take deadlines seriously, but a lot of times it comes from overcommitment. They're not prioritizing properly to make sure that that comes the right order, if you would. They underestimate either the time that will take or the load that they have, or the commitment that it will, the capacity that they need. I think also too, for our yes people, and I was just having a conversation this week about this with somebody new to Bangkok about the saying yes too often. And so they were filling themselves full of yeses versus having discernment to be able to focus in. And there's a reason, like it wasn't, like you said, it's not always bad and it's not always negative results. It's not because we're lazy. It's not because there's not intention behind it, but constantly see it in business owners, especially high performers, who just become like tapped out. And then it becomes this vicious cycle that they miss a deadline, then you beat yourself up, and then you get in this like, and then it does not create the right foundations for you to get back onto track and to be able to like accomplish those deadlines. Also, and we talk about this, especially around goal setting, is that they're setting up deadlines in the way that they think that they should, not in the way that really is authentic to them and in priority to them as well. It's kind of like setting up a goal because you think this is what you need to do, but not really looking at like, is this something I'm serious about? And so then your deadlines become like super intense about all these different things, and you didn't set yourself up for success. I mean, there's so many different things here, but
that brings up another point about setting yourself up for success, in that you're creating this deadline timeline as if the world is perfect and nothing is going to go wrong and nothing new is going to happen. We just had 2 clients in the last couple of weeks who had similar situations like this. They had the deadline. They knew when the hard deadline was, the one with teeth. They had a deadline. One was a launch, another was a big event they had going on. And they knew that date. It wasn't like that date magically appeared overnight. They'd had months of prep. They had benchmarkers that they were supposed to hit, and they fell behind on one. They're like, oh, it's okay because the event's a month away. I still have 6 weeks to do that. It's fine. No problem, no problem. And then chaos erupted, like, a flooding, roof collapsing, like big things, like life things that happened. A family member got injured. All these things happened. And then suddenly that 6-week timeline that they had dwindled down to nothing. And they were staying up overnight in this chaos mode of, I don't have time. I didn't have time to do that. And then balls were dropping left and right. Even things that, ultimately contributed to the launch not going as well, because they were relying upon this perfect scenario rather than being like, okay, if this is my deadline, I probably shouldn't have things to do the night before. I should space it out. So if stuff happens, if life's that week, I actually have a bit of a fallback time, or I can delegate it away to somebody else. And also there was a shocking lack of delegating happening in those situations. However, all of that could have been avoided had they not made their hard deadline the day of the launch. That shouldn't have been a deadline. That should have been 2 weeks before. And then you give your team 5 days before that, so that there should always be wiggle room. There should always be buffer. Always. Yeah. Because you don't know what's going to happen there. I mean, we had a team member the other day, they called us up. I can't make this meeting because there's an earthquake. I'm like, that's a really good reason. So you don't know, and you can't control other things. And it doesn't mean that team member isn't good. It doesn't mean that you're not good at your job. It doesn't mean that you weren't managing your time or allocating. But if you don't set realistic expectations for how long it's going to take and then add a little bit of buffer in, you're going to subject yourself to these kinds of things, because life's hard sometimes. And you can't really, there's so many instances where you can't do anything about it.
As you were talking, I want to call us both out. Something popped in my mind, because another thing about the deadline dilemma is for those of us girlies and even guys out there who are great under pressure and can do everything last minute. And we've seen this play over and over again. And both of us have this MO, but we've really tried to train ourselves to not. It's not always procrastination. It really is a belief cycle in some of us, and we just are able to bang it out. But if you understand your deadline and kind of the cadence in which needs to happen, the actions that need to happen in order to make that deadline, when you throw that into the cycle, it pushes your deadline against the wall, if you would. And so when lives or things come up, then you are stressed out, you're trying to navigate, or you're missing it or pushing it, which I definitely want to talk about the cost of moving the finish line as well. And, another thing too is that, with deadlines, especially as entrepreneurs or as the business owners, you talked about having teeth to them. I think one thing that differentiates, those that kind of keep their deadlines better versus those that don't is the accountability part. So there's no accountability tied to it. And you kind of mentioned this before, but I think that's what works so well in corporate and different things like that, because you have somebody you have to answer to. And there is a penalty based on that. Versus solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, a lot of times they don't hit those deadlines because they don't have anybody to answer to. And it's funny, I'm thinking of one of our clients that are currently in the BA, and she's very clear. She's a career academic, entrepreneur as well. And she loves being in the BA, the Badass Amplifier, because if she says she's going to do it, she feels like that's a deadline for her. And she doesn't want to look silly in front of us and come to us and say, my homework wasn't done, type of thing. And so it's her way of creating a teeth to her particular deadlines. But let's talk about the costs of moving the finish line, because now I want to preface that sometimes you have to. Sometimes you look at things and absolutely it should have been moved in the first place. But sometimes there should be good reasons, and you should have, if you would, kind of a strategy to be able to kind of talk around that. So that way you don't hurt yourself, because moving the finish line does cost you something. It can cost you trust. It can cost you confidence. It can cost you confidence from your clients, confidence in yourself. It creates this pattern of, oh, well, I don't have to stay accountable to certain things. It creates little red flags in you, in your team members, and in your potential prospects, as well as your clients. So there are ways you can maneuver around this, but this is absolutely, there is a cost to moving that finish line.
There is. And you also need to distinguish the difference between deadlines that matter, deadlines like client deliverables and launches and, book launches, big things, from the ones that you kind of made up that don't move the business. And sometimes the discipline move is killing the deadline not hitting it. And in those instances, it's when you're using a deadline and you're freaking out and it's a self-imposed deadline. It's a deadline that doesn't really matter. And when that deadline is connected with something that isn't moving the business forward, you're absolutely wasting your time and expending energy where it doesn't need to be expended for the sake of this imaginary deadline that exists out in the ether. Because again, as entrepreneurs, there are a lot of things that we do and do not have to do. However, when it is a deadline that matters, so something like a client deliverable, product launch, a new website that you've got like an event around, things that actually have consequences, you do have to make that kind of overall decision. If you're not going to do it, what is the backlash that's going to come from that? Are there advertising dollars that were lost? Is there trust that was lost? Are you going to have to make up some of that with the client, with your customers, with whoever? Or is it more of a pride thing and an ego thing? Because that's also not an unknown thing in the entrepreneurial world.
All right. One last thing that I think we should talk about is, especially for our perfectionists or recovering perfectionists in the group, is this is a lot of times one of the top, if not the number one reason why people miss deadlines in the reason side is because they want to make it perfect. Listen, you can always tweak, you can always move, you can always adjust, nothing's ever completely done. Even when you build the house, like you have to upkeep it, you want to paint it and change it for the season, etc. Done is better than perfect. Perfection doesn't pay you the money. Perfection.
And I'll give you an example from us. Our first book had 4 proofreaders, couple of editors. I read it 67 million thousand quadrillion times.
She did.
And still, when it was published, I then reread it like a crazy psychopath and found a couple of errors. And it's still, I'm like, and we had weeks, multiple eyes on it, and they still had some typos. If we had waited till we were 100 million% sure that every single typo was gone and pulled it off the shelves and redid it, we'd probably still be working on it. I'd probably be like, oh yeah, now I don't like the cover. And now I don't like the back cover. And now we should have our picture here and we should change this. And we would still be in the editing phase of that book. And the marketing phase of that book. Instead of having another one under our belt, other ones for each of us have put out. Done is better than perfect. There is no perfect. And then you're going to have some person like me who's like, you should have used the subjunctive case when you've read. There's always going to be something.
Always.
Always.
I do want to add to that, Amanda, because, we learned a lot, and that is an excellent example, because we did have a deadline, an internal deadline that we had set, and then we put it out to the public to make it an external deadline. So that way we stayed accountable. Although typically Amanda and I are pretty good about that accountability. However, and I know this kind of goes into other topics, but Amanda's right. The 4 different proofreaders, Amanda did read it a cajillion times. I read it a couple, but she read it a cajillion times. And like, if we wouldn't have had that deadline, it would have kept going, like she said. But also, like, because I want to say we moved that original internal deadline, and it cost us more money because we wanted to make sure it was perfect, right? And finally it came to, I remember the conversation where I'm like, babe, we have this, like, it's good enough. Like, at this point it was really good, but it was good enough. And we learned our next our next several books, because we launched our other book and then our personal books and stuff like that. And so it really taught us a good lesson, not just about the deadlines, but that effort and that accountability piece, and like how much time and effort goes into it, and the cadence of something, right? So obviously when you're setting your sights on something new, when you're creating a deadline, maybe you're launching a program for the first time, or you're releasing a book for the first time, give yourself some extra grace and cushion room, because this is your first time going through it, I guess, is this the moral of the story that I'm getting to. Because something that you're used to is very different than something that is new to you. And sometimes we get caught up in that deadline dilemma, even with the things that we're used to, but yeah, so give yourself a little bit of extra cushion for the new things as well.
And for those of you who are in the earlier stages of entrepreneurship, sorry, there are deadlines. It's not
should be.
I get to do whatever I want. Let's go to Ibiza this weekend. Though that sounds like a good idea too. It's not always that. There are deadlines, even for the people, and I'll throw Lynn and I in this bucket of having a fairly large amount of freedom within what we do. We travel quite a bit, both of us, in international and inside the countries that we're in when we're in them. And yes, there's that freedom, but both of us still have deadlines. And Absolutely. For separate businesses, for different things, for different clients, there's still deadlines. So even if you have been sold or bought into this idea of entrepreneurship is this free for all, everything's freedom and life's going to get easy, it does in some respects, but there's still deadlines. There's still that accountability. There are still things that you have to do. I will say, even some of my uber successful clients and friends who are just, we'll call it, they have FU money and then some. They still have deadlines. Everybody's got deadlines. There's still deadlines. So
absolutely. I think that they have more deadlines than like a lot of the newbies because they're living in this. So I can do anything.
So things are finite.
Well, guess what? You're leaving money on the table and you don't really have business probably, but that's a whole other topic. Listen, I feel like we could talk about, I feel like all of our topics, and I know I say this a lot, you say it too. We could talk about this forever, but essentially you need to be setting deadlines. Make sure that those deadlines are yours and that you're reverse engineering it. I know we didn't say that term before. You've heard us talk about it before, but reverse engineer what needs to be done. Make sure that you're leaving yourself cushion and wiggle room because life will life, business will business. And also documenting the process, which I know is a sidebar of the deadline, but still document that process. Yeah. And get her done because perfection doesn't pay the bills. Get her done.
Fortunately, if it did, I would have FU money.
Oh, too bad. You and me both.
If this resonated with you, if you have been pushing off, putting over, not thinking about the deadline, but then never actually executing, this is your wake-up call. This is your sign. Put the deadline on your calendar. Actually do the thing. And if you know someone who might need this message, make sure you forward them our information, our podcast, and maybe we'll have a new listener.
Absolutely. Hit that subscribe button. Till next time.
Get after it.
Thanks for tuning in. But remember, listening is not doing.
Take what you heard today and move.
Share the episode, leave us a review, and tag us when you take action.
Head over to the Pursuit of Badasserie.com and see how we're helping entrepreneurs get results without the fluff.
Until next time,
let's get after it.